I would like you to stop thinking of the deaths of Louise Camirand, Manon, Dube, and Theresa Allore as connected cases. I'll say that again. I would like you to stop thinking of these three cases as connected, even though I'm the one who's probably been the most vocal about championing this theory. The basis of that argument was something that was suggested by criminologist Rossmo when he recommended, based on geographic proximity of the crimes, that Quebec Police look at the cases together. It was supported by another criminologist who stated that it is statistically improbable that a serial killer did not commit three similar murders in the space of 19 months in the Eastern Townships. These are just theories, hypotheses. Today, the Sûreté de Québec recognize Rossmo as the godfather of geographic profiling, as it was put to me. And many of their investigators are trained and certified in geographic profiling techniques. In the early 2000s, I asked the investigative police force on all three of these cases, the Sûreté de Québec, to consider this theory. We didn't say that it was confirmed. They're the experts, so we asked them to look into it. And they did. Over the years, at least two criminal profilers looked at all three cases. In the SQ's words, "You made us do our homework." I will also say that there was a time when it was expedient to connect the cases. Three is better than one. It attracts more media interests. You get more people's attention. Perhaps people will talk about it and come forward with information. The problem with this approach is the same problem with the, quote, drug overdose theory held by the original Sûreté du Québec investigator Rock Goudreau about my sister Theresa's death. When people hear too much about a theory, they may shut down. They hear drug overdose and they think, well, my piece of information must be irrelevant because the police are saying drugs. Overemphasizing a theory of a serial killer can have exactly the same effect. People with legitimate information may no longer come forward, thinking, well, I knew this guy or this thing happened. It was kind of weird, but they are now saying it's a serial killer, so I must be wrong. And I will add that in my experience overall, involving the media is not a very effective tool for engagement and soliciting a response from people. It's a very static, passive approach. People tend to simply receive it and then move on with things. That's a terrible thing. Now I'm going to change the channel. They don't engage with the information. So more and more, I'm finding, soliciting the media, sucking up to them, asking them to do stories has proven to be pretty much useless. That's why we're having this conversation over several types of platforms, frankly. Podcast on YouTube, on social media, in various channels. We are having this conversation. Overemphasis of any single theory can be damaging. It's one of the reasons that police are always cautious in committing to theories. How they choose their words may sound at times like pussyfooting, that they may be wishy-washy, but what they're actually doing is protecting the integrity of an investigation. I would also like you to stop thinking of a dead Sherbrooke offender named Luc Grégoire as the number one suspect in my sister's murder. That too is just a theory. To keep repeating that idea can have the same effect as mentioned just before. People with credible information may think there's no longer a need to come forward. They shut down and they say nothing. And I say this because since the publication of the book Wish You Were Here, a better suspect or suspects have come to light. A suspect that both myself and the Sûreté du Québec agree is very credible and worth pursuing. This suspect was developed independently by myself and the SQ. I was doing some work, they were doing some work, and when we came together and compared notes, we found that we had both been chasing the same suspect. It is someone remarkably similar to the profile of Luc Grégoire. They lived and were involved in the criminal activity that took place along King and Wellington in Sherbrooke, Quebec in the late 1970s, early 1980s. They had a long history of arrests and offenses. And by this, I guess I say ideas evolve. And so, as I suggested in the post story we did, the Folie à Deux, I would like you to consider another theory. Not of a serial killer, but the idea that all sorts of people were getting away with some very bad things, including murder, in the Sherbrooke area in the 1970s. And we will get to Manon Dube and Louise Camirand at another time, but very shortly. And for the moment, I would like to give an overview update of my sister's case. Keep in mind that we said in Folie à Deux that the Quebec Police received a phone call from a witness describing something they observed in the fall of 1978. The person was driving in the area of Lennoxville, Compton, and they observed a vehicle with 3 individuals inside chasing a young woman who was running down the road. Consider what I'm about to say, keeping that in mind. And perhaps I'll drop one other idea in there. In the matter of what we talked about last time in the Night of the Long Knives, consider this. If members of biker gangs, such as the Gitans, could be acquitted of murders that occurred on the main streets of Sherbrooke in broad view of the public, what else could they have gotten away with? So these are just the facts. I'm not going to engage in speculation. There's many other things that have been talked about, but I just want to give you a reset with the facts. Theresa had been a student at Champlain Regional College, a cégep in Lennoxville, Quebec, just south of the city of Sherbrooke, for about 8 weeks when she disappeared on Friday, November 3rd, 1978. At the time of her disappearance, her hair was it was long, it was frizzy. She had recently gotten a perm, so it was like reddish brown, tight curls, as was the fashion at that time. She was wearing dark slacks, a t-shirt, and a long beige sweater, almost like a coat. And it was warm that Friday in the townships. And this accounts for the clothing she chose to wear for school that day. Her classes were in Lennoxville, but the student dorm where she lived was in the village of Compton at Kings Hall, approximately 10 kilometers south of the Champlain campus. About 200 students lived there. From what we know, that Friday was a typical school day. She took a school bus into Lennoxville. She had classes that morning. She saw friends at lunchtime in the school dining area. At lunch, she told friends she intended to return to Compton that evening and do some homework. Around 6 p.m., a friend on one of the buses returned to Compton and saw Theresa standing on campus, so she missed the 6 o'clock bus. The next bus would not arrive until about 11 p.m. And that's the last sighting of Theresa Allore, around 6 p.m., Friday, November 3rd, 1978, in Lennoxville. She wasn't noticed missing until about the following midweek. She wasn't reported as missing until the following Friday, November 10th. The first articles to hit the newspapers didn't appear until about 12 days later on Tuesday, November 14th. She was missing all that winter. Her body wasn't found until after the spring thaw on Good Friday, April 13th, 1979. A muskrat trapper found Theresa in a small body of water on the edge of a cornfield about 1.5 kilometers between Compton and Compton Station, not very far from the school dorm. She's at the base of a valley that runs between these two villages. And I've online, theresaallore.com, TheresaAllore.com. I've posted a lot of photos, including the original missing persons poster with what she looked like at the time. Some maps giving you the distances between Kings Hall and Lennoxville, and between Compton, Kings Hall, and Compton Station. La Tribune article from April 14th, 79, with a really good photo of the area where she was found at the time. And it's somewhat important because that area has changed a lot. Well, not so much, but just, there's a lot of confusion of the little bridge over this body of water, whether she's thrown off the bridge, blah, blah, blah. But that bridge looks very different today than it does then. It did then. It's like a concrete bridge with metal dowel rods. Probably the most important thing is the condition of the road. There's been a lot of speculation over the years. Was the road gravel then? It was not. It was a paved road, and you can clearly see. You can see. I'm not going to tell you what you can see. I omitted the photo of my sister's body in the water because enough is enough. If you want to find that photo, you can find that photo. I think in these photos, there's more telling things of the environment that I'm not going to talk about. They're for you to decide what's important about them or not. So when Theresa was found, she was in her underwear. Her clothing was never found. A garbage bag of clothing was found by the side of the road near where her body was found. It was women's clothing, but not Theresa's. Early in her missing persons investigation, 2 hunters came forward to say that they saw clothing in the woods near Memphremagog on the morning of Saturday, November 4th, 1978. Dark pants and a t-shirt. So the day after she went missing, curiously, about 500 meters from the location of where Louise Camirand was found the previous year. But I want to state that police went to the site the hunters described, and they never found the clothing. Okay, got it? Theresa was lying face down in the water. The coroner arrived at the scene and noted marks of strangulation on her neck. About a week after the body was recovered, Theresa's wallet was found at the side of the road about 16 kilometers away along Chemin Macdonald. Chemin Macdonald is a back entrance to the city of Sherbrooke and not far from Lennoxville. The wallet contained her papers and identification. There was no money in the wallet. Because of the length of time the body was in the water, 5.5 months, the autopsy results proved inconclusive. For some reason, the marks of strangulation observed by the Sherbrooke coroner were not detected by the pathologist who conducted the autopsy in Montreal. They were able to conduct a full toxicological analysis and concluded there were no drugs in her system at the time of death. And the final coroner's verdict, submitted in 1983, made a determination of violent death of undetermined means. Riddle me this. What is the one piece of evidence that tells you Theresa was the victim of a crime? So this question was put to me by the Sûreté de Quebec recently, and I answered without hesitation, the wallet. The disposal of the wallet 16 kilometers away tells you that this wasn't suicide or drug overdose or accidental death. The single most damaging thing to the investigation was SQ Detective Roche going on national television, as he did in 2005, the W5 program, and stating, "I'm still convinced of a drug overdose." More recently, SQ investigators have stated, rather politely, it was not cautious to have said that. They elaborated that in criminal investigations, you follow the evidence, and they had never heard of a police investigator going against the evidence that determined no drugs in Theresa's system. And I'll go further. In 2003, the Sûreté de Quebec had the toxicological evidence retested with modern techniques. And again, no drugs, and this time, a new finding, no alcohol as well. Finally, I'll just give you a reminder that when Roque-Gaudreau was asked how he accounted for the wallet being found 16 kilometers away from the victim, his response was that wild animals could have carried it there. You know, we had some back and forth about this, about the no drugs. You know, they sort of said, yeah, but testing a body 5.5 months later, who knows? And my response was, if they had no hesitation about being inconclusive about the mode of death, right? Violent death of undetermined means. So if that were the case, then why not? If there was some matter of doubt about drugs, toxicologically, then why not state that? It says no drugs. It doesn't say we can't tell if there's drugs. So I throw that idea down the shitter immediately. It's their professional response. If the main investigative tool is the evidence, this is the evidence, and that's what we're going to use. The other interesting thing that is more recent is the no alcohol. So there's been speculation over the years about if she's last seen in Lennoxville. Did she go to the Lion Pub and have a drink? Well, she might have gone to the Lion Pub, but she certainly didn't have a drink. Did she go to Entre Deux, the restaurant in Compton? Well, she might have been on her way to Entre Deux, but she certainly didn't have a drink there. I'm going to keep this short and sweet because it's a lot of information. And I want it out there, and I want people to think about it. The official position of the Sûreté du Québec regarding Theresa's case is in line with what they have posted on their cold case website. They considered her death a crime, it says, and it also states all the leads resulting from the investigation were and continue to be studied. And in a recent conversation with the Sûreté du Québec, they elaborated on this position. And this is a summary of how I would characterize their thinking around this. These are my words around the way it's been expressed to me by the Sûreté du Québec. Murder is the main hypothesis. Suicide is not. Drugs is not. A victim of a crime is the hypothesis because of the wallet. Sexual murder could also be a consideration. If strangulation is the mode of the murder, then is it hands or ligature? Was she strangled from the front or the back? There was a lot of discussion around that about the personal nature of front or back. From the front is more personal. From the back, yeah, take that stuff with a pound of salt, but yeah, sure. And that all these things need to be considered. And so for now, what they say is if you're talking about odds and percentages, about 75% certain that Theresa was the victim of a crime. And there's a holdback of about 25% because we don't know. There could be other information that we just don't know. And for myself, I would say that that's probably for the first time that my thinking is exactly aligned with the Sûreté du Québec. And now that you know all this information or have been reintroduced to this information, the circumstances of the case, the thoughts of the police, you know that there is a suspect, a good suspect, consider in this matter. You also know that the Quebec Police received a phone call from a witness documenting something they observed in the fall of 1978. Person driving in the area, they see 3 individuals, possibly 4, a group of individuals in a car chasing a young woman running down the road. Don't become too attached to any of that information. Hold back 25%, but bear it in mind. And finally, with all of this to consider, I would simply ask the public, in particular the people from the Sherbrooke area, to cast their thoughts back to the autumn of 1978. And I would ask them, what do you remember? This is Who Killed Theresa. If you have information that would help solve a crime, you can contact the Sûreté du Québec at 1-800-659-4264 or by email at cic@surete, surete.qc.ca. You can just go to their website, get it done there. If you search on Sûreté du Québec and cold case, it'll get you where you're supposed to be. It's enough for today. This has been Who Killed Theresa. I'm your host, John Allore. Have yourselves a great great day.